Jesus explains the way to my heart. Will you accept or refuse my invitation? May 12th, 2016. Words from Jesus through Sister Clare, spoken by Jackie. Clare began. The Lord continues to draw us, dear Heartdwellers. He is hungry for our company and is again showing us the way to His heart. So when we began our time together, I said, "Oh, thank you, Lord, for touching my heart so sweetly." And He replied, "You see, by denying yourself the little things, you draw closer to the delights of heaven. It only takes a little effort, Clare, a little agreement, and the sweetness of my presence and our love is filled with the fresh fragrance of devotion." My people, if you want to draw closer to heaven, you must learn to deny yourself and walk in self-denial. You cannot continue to feed the flesh and expect eternal rewards, for the flesh is in opposition to the Spirit, and one cancels out the power of the other. So, if you want closer encounters with me and with heaven, deny yourselves some choice morsel and come into my presence stronger in resolve than ever. I'm not an easy catch. My royal dignity does not allow for me to be an easy catch. Rather, you must reach up and out of yourselves as you seek my fellowship and the sweetness of my presence. What price are you willing to pay, my beloved ones? What are you willing to deny yourself for me? The rich young ruler had done all the law commanded, but his heart was still with his possessions and future inheritance. The idea of disappointing his father was also something he could not even fathom, a slap in the face for his father's years of planning and toil. Yes, relatives and security will keep you from your highest calling if you allow them to. I called him, but fear of the unknown and being stripped naked of all human dignity to become an itinerant disciple of a questionable teacher, looked down upon by the scribes and Pharisees. Well, that was just too much. All in one fell swoop. He would lose his family, who would call him a madman, and be condemned by the highly respected and corrupt Pharisees. Overnight, he would go from riches to rags, a man with a future to a man of shame, a man of means leveled to the status of a common beggar. Oh no, he could not possibly wear that crown of scorns that all my apostles were offered. Truly, it's not the poverty alone that causes a soul to refuse my invitation. It is the stigma of poverty and the way you are looked upon daily when you reduce yourself to the status of a beggar and live solely on alms given even by women. So many find their self-worth in their possessions. When those are stripped, they feel that even their dignity has been stripped. As I've told you many times before, no man is worth more than the price I paid on Calvary for them. Each and every one cost me the very life's blood of my body. Therefore, the rich and the poor are of equal value in my kingdom. This is something that does not become apparent to most until after they die, and then they see their nakedness before me. Accumulations of wealth, status, and accomplishment fade like the morning mist, and what is left is the stark reality. What did you do for others? Did you learn how to give? Did you learn how to love? It is a very difficult decision to leave the world in order to follow me. So many ramifications. My disciples were head over heels in love with me. They made that choice without hesitation. Claire struggled over this decision. She missed my first call, but I gave her a dream in which I said I will call again. And the second time she decided for me. The rewards were literally out of this world, but the scorn and contempt that accompanied it was very much like what my disciples endured as they set out after my ascension. I felt the Lord was prompting me to break in and share something with you. At the risk of boring the old-timers on this channel, I will share briefly what happened. This was the second call. The link to the story of the first call, What is Your Price?, is below this video on YouTube, and it is also linked at the end of this video. My husband at the time was in the University of Maryland School of Public Affairs, and we were supported by his parents. He had trouble with one professor after about a year and was put on probation. Truly, this was an act of God. I had been living the Christian cultural dream, lovely 3-story antique house in the old section of Annapolis, a fireplace in every room on the ground floor, 150-year-old antique floors, and beautiful wooden cabinets in a very large kitchen with a fireplace, and a backyard that buttled against the oldest and most distinguished estate in Annapolis. We were going to a very upscale church in D.C., pastored by an Oxford-educated man who was a joy to be around and had very sound Christian teachings. We looked like the perfect, upwardly mobile family. Very well dressed, new car, fashionable house, and perfectly unhappy. I couldn't put my finger on it. I had everything I thought I wanted, but something inside was not there, even though I was a believer and we had just had our 4th child a week before the 4th of July. My husband was not happy either. We both felt something was missing. He brought home a book by the musician John Michael Talbot, and I had listened to his music, and deep was calling unto deep. There was something very pure of Jesus in his music, something I had never heard in contemporary, mainline Christian music. John had a community a few hours from us, and we went to check it out. It was so different and void of all the social posturing and wealth that we had experienced in the last 7 years. But to really live this radical Christianity, we would have to leave behind our attachments to the world and all the things we had accumulated and live the life of the first apostles. That appealed to both of us, and we left everything, our inherited antique furniture, the monthly support from his parents, all the fine clothing. We stripped down to the bare minimum, and I began homeschooling my children. My husband took a job at a nursing home. All I can say is that my life in God soared, and my relationship with Jesus was ecstatic, joyful, and beyond anything I ever thought I could have in this life. This is what I try to convey: the enormous love of God and the sublime beauty of knowing Him as our friend and spouse in a purely spiritual way. We went from a 3-story antique townhouse in the middle of Annapolis near the city dock, a fashionable neighborhood with all the trappings, to a 1-room cabin, a tar paper cabin, and we had running water when it rained, The rest of the time we got water from a pump well. It was just total wilderness in the Poconos. It was so beautiful. And Jesus continued, "And because you emptied yourself, Clare, I filled you to overflowing. But it cost you, didn't it?" Yes, it did. My husband and I were not truly equally yoked. He was not really in the same place. He couldn't live through the persecution we got for living so simply, so he left us, and I became a single parent with 4 children, ages 3 to 11. Yes, it was hard. I cleaned houses for a living, but I was very joyful because Jesus was my spouse. Truly, he covered me and took over the job of a husband, not in a carnal way, not in a sexual way, but in a loving brotherly way, always providing for my needs, always guiding me in prayer. And later, he introduced me to Ezekiel, who had the identical calling on his life, but he too had struggled with leaving everything behind. Together we found a path free from denominational fetters that is very much like the first century Christians lived in Antioch. We immersed ourselves in the work of serving and live only on providence, knowing what it is to be in need and knowing what it is to have plenty. Jesus continued, "I'm here for the taking. Not all are called out of society into a radical Christian life, but all are called to be radical lovers of me and forsake themselves in all things. Those who would keep their lives will lose them, but those who give up their lives for me shall indeed find them." I bless you now that you will hearken to my still small voice in your soul, and step by step give up those things that hinder the deep intimacy I have called you to. I will indeed fill you to overflowing as you forsake yourself in all things.